Welcome back to Just Fantasy Baseball. I'm your host, Colby Olson. As always, joined by Clay Snowden, who was on a brief hiatus last week. We missed you, buddy, but it's good to have you back. And it's even better to have you back because we're going to talk about some A's today. And I want you to tell the people kind of about where your fandom is at right now because you are a Reds fan through and through. But now you have a Twitter account where you're tweeting about the A's constantly. You're watching a lot of A's. What's going on there?
Yeah, so I am a Reds fan. The older I get, the more I'm just like a huge fan of baseball. I can watch any team every single game and enjoy it, find something to enjoy. And for whatever reason, I started writing about the A's some last year and noticed we didn't have anybody doing that, just baseball. So I said, why the hell not? I'm on East Coast, so I can finish the Reds game, watch the A's game, and fill that gap for just baseball, bringing you news and notes on the Oakland Athletics. What else could anybody want?
You got to be careful, man. I saw you posting some video of game video. I'd be scared that you're gonna get taken down.
That's fine. Take me down. I don't
Take me
care.
down, take the small guy down.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So the way this episode's going to go is we're going to talk about some waiver wire guys that we're highlighting this week, from anybody from an 8-team league to guys that you can target in your 12-team leagues and below. We also have one streaming option. And then later in this episode, Clay is going to talk with Aram about some of the prospects coming up the pipeline that could make a fantasy impact later this year, and also just like rookies that how has Jordan Walker fared? Brett Beatty got the call up, which is the big news, right? And so he'll break all of that down later with Aram. But Clay, before we get into waiver wire, I want to talk about the most interesting man in the world. Your current number two fantasy baseball player in the world. Ronald Acuna Jr. so far this year has been the most valuable fantasy baseball player. Jorge Mateo, shortstop for the Baltimore Orioles, is second in fantasy baseball value so far this year. Mateo has 3 home runs, 8 stolen bases, and is hitting 372 in 14 games. 8 stolen bases in 14 games with 372. I mean, this is a guy that had an 83 WRC plus in 2021. He had an 82 WRC plus in 2022. He struck out a ton in those years, 26 and 27% respectively. He did steal 35 bags last year, but there was not a lot to go along with that. And now we're seeing him hit the ball 44%, or a hard hit rate of 44.7%. His highest ever was 32% last year. So he's hitting the ball harder. He's hitting the ball hard with authority. And this is interesting because this is a guy that, I don't know, I think most people were drafting, but now he's owned in 77% of leagues and is one of the top fantasy players in the league. And I see no reason why I shouldn't believe this.
He's absolutely killing the ball, which is not something, his profile is funny because, or like his track record's a little bit funny because he bounced around the league, top prospect, didn't really reach that height and bounced around quite a bit, kind of waiver wire guy. And I remember listening to an Orioles podcast a couple of years ago when they were talking about like maybe they could DFA him, like maybe, like he wasn't really like a big part of the future. And here he is just like shoving it to all of the young prospects who are supposedly going to take his spot. He's killing the ball. We all know about the speed. It's even in games where he's not getting hits, he's impacting the game and somehow. Defense, speed. He's been taking a few walks and getting on base, getting RBIs with sack hits. Like he's contributing in a lot of different ways, which is exactly what you need for a fantasy roster.
Yeah, he's currently tied for first in F4. So yes, he has not only been one of the most valuable fantasy baseball players, but real life players. I mean, this is a guy that had a 2.8 WAR last year with an 82 WRC plus. So like, imagine you have Jorge Mateo and he's a 120 WRC plus player. I mean, he could legitimately be a 5 to 6 win player. That could change the Orioles season right there. But
Yep.
Here nor there, let's move on to waiver wire pickups for this week, Clay. And we got a fun one up first here. Brent Rooker is who we're going to be talking about first, who has bounced around everywhere. Minnesota, then to the Padres, then to Kansas City, then what? Back to the Padres, right? Yep, back to the Padres. I mean, he's been everywhere. Now he's with Oakland, and he's finally getting a chance to, be in a full-time role. The crazy thing, Clay, and I want to start here, is first of all, you wrote an article on justbaseball.com about Brent Rooker. He's in my waiver wire article, obviously. I'm going to start here, though. This guy hit 28 home runs in 81 games last year in the minor leagues. That is insane. Yep. Who else can do that?
Yeah, so the thing about him is he's always had power. There's never a doubt. And kind of what I wrote and what I think is fair to assess is some players either need more time or they just need the opportunity. When he was in Minnesota, you're calling him up for brief stints, a lot of pressure to perform right then to see if you can stick or not. Didn't really get the chance last year at the major league level, although he was killing the ball. Padres didn't really have a spot for him, shipped him off at the deadline to Kansas City. It just didn't work out there. He's in Oakland with zero pressure. He made the opening day roster over Christian Pache, and that, kind of pissed off some fans at first. He started off terrible, 0 for 9, but was killing the ball. And I just hold on, wait. We know the power he has. 4 home runs, getting the opportunity because Seth Brown got injured. And I think that he's going to stick even when Seth Brown comes back.
I mean, dude, a 59% hard hit rate, an average exit velocity of 95 miles an hour. He's hitting the ball in the air, a ridiculous 26% barrel rate. Like, he's striking out at a career low, 18% right now. So yeah, this is a guy for me that I would be running to pick up.
Look at the expected stats from 2021, which is a 56 game sample size. I think he had a 201 batting average. Expected was 238 or somewhere around there. And the slugging expected was like 60 points higher. All I'm saying is if he can be a 240 hitter, he's going to run into enough balls that he's going to have legitimate value on this team. And I don't care about the ballpark in Oakland. He's hitting it out there too.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. This is a guy that can defy every ballpark. I mean, the profile here is a lot like a Hunter Renfroe. That's what I would be my comp, right? Hunter Renfroe in a bit of a worse lineup, but he's hitting right in the middle of this lineup. They have to score some runs, and I would imagine that Brent Rooker could be a big part of that. So yeah, he's owned in 14% of leagues right now, but I've seen that continue to rise today even. So yeah, run and go grab Brent Rooker. Let's move on to a guy that's not as deep of an option. I think Brent Rooker is a guy that a lot of 10-teamers, 12-team leagues will be targeting. But Nolan Gorman is one that guys in 8-team leagues and even 10-team leagues might have the chance to grab. And Gorman is a bit cut from the same cloth as Brent Rooker, right? This is a guy that hits the ball really hard. He's hitting the ball in the air a ton. He has a 54% hard hit rate, a 17% barrel rate. And this is very similar to what he did last season in a very small sample size, right? A 43% hard hit rate last year with a 14% barrel rate. This is a guy whose MO is hitting the ball hard and hitting the ball in the air and crushing righties. He can't hit lefties. He's not going to play against lefties. They played him in one game against the lefty this year. But against righties, he will be hitting, 5th and 6th in this Cardinals lineup. And it's shown already 4 home runs for him this year, 14 RBIs. He's hitting 333, one of the highest expected WOBAs in baseball. I mean, Nolan Gorman looks legit and he's cut the K rate, and I'm bought in.
Yeah, the K rate's down to 25%. Average exit velo up a few notches as well. And the hard hit rate of 54.8. But when you watch him, he just looks more comfortable. I don't know if he's just seeing the ball better or more time on task. He's just more comfortable at the plate, maybe not pressing as much. This is a really good Cardinals lineup. And I know the record does not show how good this team is. If he hits enough to actually stick in more of the everyday type role, I know he won't be used against lefties much, but if he can be that everyday type player, I think he's going to have enough run production to be productive in any league that you have. And, he's still a guy who was a huge prospect. It wasn't like this is the Brent Rooker where there's some, I don't know, maybe he goes back to, old ways, but Nolan Gorman for me is a must add, especially at second base, and by the way, he has seen time at third base. So if he is like the backup third baseman, you could eventually get third base eligibility, which always just helps with injuries and off days.
Clay, today's episode is brought to you by So Rare. So Rare is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace transforming fans into owners. So with So Rare, it's a free-to-play fantasy baseball game with officially licensed cards from every single team. So basically, you download So Rare, you can draft your own team with a certain budget, and those are your free-to-own cards, and you can enter contests with those cards and basically build your own fantasy baseball lineup. You can also buy and sell cards and earn rewards to get new free cards as well. So free to play, but you can also purchase and sell cards as well. I've been playing a ton so far this season, and I definitely recommend everybody to check it out. If you love fantasy sports, if you're into card collecting, it's the perfect bridge of those two things together, and I'm having a blast doing it. So make sure you go click the link in the episode description, download So Rare, draft your free lineup today. Play. We got a couple more guys here on waiver wire pickups, and then we got one streaming option. I know you and Arm are going to get to Brett Beatty later, so I don't want to touch on him too much here. But I just want to mention, we talked about him 2 weeks ago on this show, and we said basically, pick him up now. You might as well pick him up now because somebody else is going to be first. Like, say you're out at a baseball game or you're like doing something else on a Sunday afternoon, which is when he gets called up, right? And you miss it, you're screwed. So that's why I always recommend, keep him on your bench for a couple weeks. He's going to get called up soon. And what do you know? Here he is. Brett Beatty gets called up after 4 home runs in the minor leagues. Just was like playing above 5 home runs in the minor leagues. Excuse me. I mean, he hit 400 with an 886 slug this season in AAA. So very much deserving of the call up to the Mets. Arm is going to touch on him later, but I don't even think you need to get that far in order for you to go to your waiver wire right now and go add Brett Beatty.
Yeah,
right.
I agree, and I'm looking forward to hearing Arm's thoughts on him as well.
All right, got one pitcher for you this week, Clay, and it's a guy again we talked about 2 weeks ago, but I want to go back to him because he struggled in his first outing, as many pitchers do. That is actually one piece of advice that I would give to everybody is never play a starter in his debut outing after coming off the injured list if it was an extended absence, right? If he was just on the 10-day IL, like whatever, was some little flare up or something, and like he only had to have one rehab start, whatever, start him in his first game back. But for extended absences like the one that Garrett Whitlock had with his hip, he's facing the Rays in his debut, and it's like on the road, no way Garrett Whitlock's going to, fare well in this outing. And he didn't, right? He didn't walk a batter, gave up 8 hits, 3 home runs to his name in that game, 5 strikeouts over 5 innings. So not the sharpest outing against the Rays team that was just unbeatable at that time. Last time out, though, on, I believe it was Friday night. No, it was on Saturday. Whitlock went against the Angels and went 7 innings, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, 3 hits against him, gave up just 1 earned run. Looked really, really sharp, Clay. He had the fastball up to 96, which we hadn't seen from him in that first outing. The slider looked really good. He got Mike Trout swinging on a slider outside. And I was like, oh, what we got here with Garrett Whitlock? So right now he's owned in 34% of leagues. He should be a quality start machine because he keeps the ball on the ground. He does have strikeout stuff. He's a guy that can motor to the 7th inning because he just keeps his pitch count down. And it's a guy that I would very much be targeting because I don't know if it's a hot take to say that Garrett Whitlock might be the best starter on the Red Sox right now.
I do not think that that's a hot take at all, honestly. I think Corey Kluber may be cooked, honestly, but yeah, I like that pickup. Started in the bullpen in his career, but moved to starter, and I think that that's a good move by the Red Sox. I'm a little hesitant about picking him up right now, and maybe a deeper league or if you need a starting pitcher. But if you're doing okay with pitchers, a little bit. The only reason why is Twins, Brewers, Orioles, Guardians all coming up for the Red Sox to finish out April. Then you have Blue Jays, Phillies, Braves, Cardinals, Mariners, Padres, Angels, D-backs. Not exactly the most favorable schedule.
Are the Red Sox
But,
going to win a game in the next month?
I didn't realize how difficult the schedule was until I looked that up, and I was like, man, I don't know about the Red Sox right now. It could honestly be, and not to go down a Red Sox tangent, but it could really defy the season. Like if you beat some of these teams and win some series, that's so much momentum, so much early in the season. And if you lose, man, I don't know if I can see Corey Kluber out there again.
Yeah, I mean, so I will say that I feel comfortable rostering Whitlock even against those good teams because I think he can pitch to a level where he can get those teams out. And again, he's a quality start machine. And in a league right now where it's hard sometimes to find pitchers that go 6 to 7 innings, I think Whitlock is that guy. And a reason that if you are struggling to get quality starts week over week, Whitlock is a guy to target specifically. Clay, last guy I want to touch on for streaming purposes this week, he goes on Wednesday, is Spencer Turnbull. He goes against the Guardians on Wednesday. And Turnbull, I really like targeting him for this matchup. One, because the Guardians have been struggling on offense. They rank right now as the 24th ranked offense in baseball and 92 WRC plus so far. So they've been scuffling. Historically, they're very bad against lefties, and they have just not been good overall this season. The reason I'd like targeting Turnbull here, though, is this is a guy that's returning from a long Tommy John absence. And so I wanted to see how he fared in his first few starts because I did not expect things to go well, especially because he faced the Tampa Bay Rays on the road in his first start, gave up 7 earned runs over 2 1/3. Then he goes to Boston. Or no. He's in Detroit, faces Boston, who was rolling at the beginning of the season. This was like healthy Adam Duvall still. Gave up 1 home run, I believe, to Adam Duvall, 5 2/3 innings, 5 earned runs, only 1 strikeout in that game, right? So first outing gets blown up, second outing gets blown up again, but he's still finding himself, right, post Tommy John. Third outing against Toronto on the road, he goes 5 innings, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. And that was the start that I watched him. And I was like, wow, I see some stuff here. Nothing crazy. He's owned in 2% of leagues, but enough stuff where I feel very confident that he could turn in a good outing against the Guardians and at least has some strikeout upside here too.
Yeah, I love that pick. And it's nice to sprinkle in a deep league guy every once in a while. I don't want to pick streamers that are 40% owned every single week. So here's one that's, under 2% on most platforms that you use. I like this pick. I like the fact that they're playing in Comerica. The offense for the Tigers has been the worst in the MLB. It is absolutely horrendous. I don't know if that's going to help you get a win. I don't know if he's going to get the win, but especially the points league, if you can get 12 points out of Spencer Turnbull on a Wednesday, like I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say pray for a quality start because I think that's going to be what you're praying for. And like maybe Torkelson runs into a ball and you get a win. I don't know. But you're right. The Tigers are very bad, but so are the Guardians right now. Like the Guardians are a sexy team, but are not playing well right now. And I think Turnbull can turn in a good start in his 4th start of the season. So 2% owned. I like it in any league where if you're a person that likes to just stream pitchers, Turnbull's the guy. Pick him up, drop him afterwards. Bada bing, bada boom, get in, get out. So that's the waiver wire for this week, the streaming options. Clay is going to break down some of the rookies and top prospects for fantasy purposes now with Aram. So we'll cut to that.
So that was the streamers and waiver wires for the week. And we have Aram, the creator of the Top 100, which is live over at justbaseball.com. And he looks like he maybe has gotten a little bit more sleep since then. Aram, how's the Top 100 list been doing?
It's been great. It's been great to just get it out, man. Yeah, I've definitely had a big weight off of my shoulders here. So Definitely feel a little bit more relaxed. Actually, you transition into draft prep now. So
Yeah.
now I've been diving into a lot of the draft guys, getting ready for that, which will creep up, sooner rather than later. But there's some overlap. I'm excited because a lot of these top 100 guys are guys that are very relevant in fantasy leagues right now. So excited to talk about that with you.
Yeah, and anyone that's looking for questions and answers, RM and Jack did a live show on the Call Up YouTube page. You can find all kinds of content breaking down each player on the top 100, just baseball and the Call Up as well, YouTube podcast. But we want to have RM on today to talk about a few players that are either just got promoted, could soon be promoted, and a couple of rookies as well. So let's get into the top two promotions that just happened. What do you think of these two promotions, one by the Angels and one by the Mets?
Yeah, so it's great timing, right? Because we get two very relevant promotions. And I'm gonna probably say two guys on our top 100 list, and Zach Neto and Brett Beatty, who, they're highly regarded no matter who you ask. But I'd say on our list, probably we've got him as high as anybody in the industry. Usually Jack McMullen cross-checks that. I know we're the high guys on Neto, and then we had Beatty at 8. So I don't know if anybody has Beatty higher than that either. So that kind of tells you, just to preface that, we are definitely higher on those two guys. I'll start with Beatty because Beatty's the easier answer right now, where I think, the Mets wanted to wait a little bit to make sure that when they brought him up this time, it would be, this is my guess, we'll find out very soon, that it'll be kind of uninterrupted. We're going to talk about Francisco Alvarez and stuff like that. And I don't think they want to have Beatty in a similar situation to Alvarez, which is sporadic playing time, kind of just flying by the seat of your pants because you just have to have Alvarez up. Beatty, they did it because I think at this point it's become clear that he's an upgrade over Eduardo Escobar for them, at least against right-handed pitching. I think Escobar is still going to get the at-bats against left-handed pitching. So Beatty will be sheltered from lefties too. So while he might have a day or two off a week, I think his numbers are going to benefit from that. So depending on how that works with leagues, I don't know if it's based on average or cumulative or a little bit of both. It is an interesting wrinkle in it. But I think Beatty is as ready as humanly possible. He was hitting 400 with 5 bombs and triple, controlling his at-bats so well. The defense has gotten way better, which I know doesn't matter from a fantasy perspective, but does matter in terms of, staying on the field and proving that you are ready for, big league, bulk opportunity there to play just about every single day. I think this guy can give you power, can give you average, can get you on base percentage. I think he could be a dark horse for, a rookie of the year candidate. It's going to be hard to keep up with Corbin Carroll and some of those Jordan Walker and stuff like that. But I do think from here on out, I do think he's going to be one of the best rookies offensively. And I think he's going to be very darn good. It helps that he get the taste of it at the end of last year too, to work out some of those kinks going into this year. I don't think you're going to have that learning curve as much.
And of course, we talk about redraft leagues here. All of the players that we list today are probably already taken and stashed and, whatnot. So we're talking redraft. Now, I do have one question about Brett Beatty, who I think is an absolute must add in every league. I just added him in my 10-man 3 days ago because I saw what he was hitting. And I said, I don't care if he takes up a bench spot and I lose a week even because I need this guy on my team. Interesting note, 9 games in AAA, 2 steals. Has had a total of 8 steals in his minor league career. Is this just a weird wrinkle? Is this something that, because, in fantasy, if you can find a player who can even steal you 10, 12, 15 bags, that's value.
Honestly, I'm interested to monitor that, but I would say, look, it's just as hard for the most part to steal bags and triplet points, depending on, your league and where you're at, as it is to steal in the big leagues, especially with the rules kind of being, uniform now for the most part. I think he can trickle in a few stolen bases here and there. He's more athletic than he gets credit for, I think, and he's gotten quicker. The defense at third's gotten way better. The footwork's gotten way better. I do think he could trickle in a few more stolen bases. The other thing too is the power, right? We haven't seen the exit velocities translate into game power as much until last year, where he cut the ground ball rate down big time. That was the thing for him. Everything was hard, but it was on the ground. This year, it's again in the air. He's really found that consistency of lifting the ball, but he's also hitting it as hard as ever. He hit a home run 112 miles an hour the other way. When you're going Oppo 112, it's pretty nuts. There's a scenario here where Beatty could be one of your better everyday players. So yes, he's a rookie. So there's, a little bit of a wide range of outcomes. There could be some learning curve. I don't think there's going to be as much because of what he was able to go through last year and get his feet wet. this is a must add. And I think a guy that you could end
Yeah.
up plugging in your lineup over a lot of big league infielders right now.
The next call up was the Angels calling up Zach Neto to play shortstop and sitting David Fletcher to just out of the world David Fletcher, who actually we have to mention because some people probably roster him at times,
Wow.
especially in super deep leagues, which is absurd in so many ways. But correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first 2022 draft pick to make the majors.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct. And, he skips AAA. So this is a little bit of a different one, right? Where I do think there is going to be some learning curve with Zach Neto. You got to be patient, but above average tools across the board. And you look at it from this perspective for the Angels. The reason why they bring this guy up at this spot is, well, they bring him up after he hits 2 home runs in a game. He's hitting 400 to start the season as well. Looked great in AAA. The power has kind of become more of a part of his game as well. He's above average in terms of speed, though he's not the most aggressive base runner. I think he's going to start to be a little bit more in the big leagues because that's going to be the kind of role. I think he's going to be the kind of guy that wants to do whatever he can to help this star-studded team, specifically with Trout and Ohtani and Rendon. Like, he's just trying to set the table the way David Fletcher couldn't. Of course, his potential is to hit 20 plus home runs and, be an above average or all-star everyday shortstop. But I don't think that's the expectation for him right away. I think the expectation is just be better than what we were getting from David Fletcher, and anything else is gravy. There is going to be some swing and miss, I think, at times as he just continues to get ready and it just gets used to major league pitching. Remember, this is a guy that hasn't even played 60 minor league games. This is one of the fastest from college to big league, jumps we've seen. And it's not like he was playing in the SEC. He was playing at Campbell. So, not to take anything away from Campbell, it's a great program, top 25 school right now in college baseball. Competition's not the same. He did crush it in the Cape. He is very, very legit, but in terms of just getting used to that caliber of pitching, we haven't seen a ton of it. I think he's shown that he can kind of get acclimated anywhere, but I think your expectations should be a little bit more tempered with him. That said, he's hit everywhere he has gone. He has been good at every single stop. He has a good approach, and he's just a natural hitter. I think Neto, if you're desperate at shortstop, he can give you something right away. For deep leagues, absolutely worth the start. Think about it from this perspective. If the Angels felt like he was an upgrade over David Fletcher and were willing to kind of rush him, then it could be an upgrade over, whatever hole you might have at your shortstop position.
2 things that I take from this. One, if you have Corey Seager, who's on the IL, if you have Orlando Arcia because you were trying to fill in an IL spot, something like that, and you just need something now, and you missed out on the Jorge Mateo kind of quickly being added on everyone, this is the type of player that you want to grab, see what can happen. Each year there's a rookie or a few that kind of break out right out of the gate, and they're almost always available when they first get called up, less than 5% of leagues. So if you are somebody who has an injury right now, instead of filling it out with Jose Barrero or something, like, take the high upside, see if this could work. Second thing, this is maybe too big brain of a thought for me to bring onto a podcast, but look at how aggressive the Angels have been.
Yeah.
If I own stock in or shares in Brandon Drury, Gio Urshela, and they aren't hitting well, we see how aggressive in Ohtani's walk here they're going to be. Yeah. Those players could be benched soon. Urshela's playing well, Drury's not. Also, if you roster some players who are going to be on the trade market come the deadline, you could get an improvement if the Angels are this aggressive, because I think that they are going all in this year. They're not going to have a very long leash with anybody. They're overall team build and everything. I wrote their preview over at Just Baseball, and man, it's a team that could go any way, and I love how aggressive they're going to be. So keep an eye on that. Speaking of the Angels, I wanted to talk about their rookie catcher, Logan O'Hoppe, who has been really impressive. And today, a few great plate appearances, worked a walk that was, I know, not noticeable in the box score, but I really loved the pitches he was laying off in that at-bat. Had a single arm. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to regret this move probably. I dropped Sean Murphy to pick up Logan O'Hoppe. When I saw that Sean Murphy 10-man league, keep in mind, not, you can find a catcher. Sean Murphy wasn't playing that much in the beginning of the year until the injury to Travis d'Arnaud. I'm worried about Sean Murphy's playing time again. Logan O'Hoppe, I want all of the shares of Logan O'Hoppe that I can get. Am I crazy?
That is a little crazy. That is a little crazy.
I'm worried
Sean
about Murphy's playing time. It was so sporadic when d'Arnaud was healthy.
It was weird.
I wonder what happens when he comes back. Now, Murphy's playing well right now. But when you have two catchers that are as proven as that in Atlanta, you don't have to play one. You know what I mean?
From a fantasy perspective.
From a fantasy perspective, it's all about at-bats.
You can play 3 or 4 times a week, and if you're getting 6 games a week from a young, fresh O'Hoppe. Because honestly, what I think the Braves are doing with Murphy personally is just kind of easing him in. Now they can't, right? But when d'Arnaud comes back, it was a concussion, I'm pretty sure. Like they'll have them kind of time sharing it, because that's the best thing for them too. Sean Murphy, somebody that you not only want to be healthy at the end of the year. The Braves are looking at a World Series. d'Arnaud is one of their better bats. I think he's going to end up being a DH for them for the most part throughout the season if Ozuna continues to stink. But the point being, like, I could see his at-bats getting slashed a little bit, while you have someone like Logan O'Hoppe who he's young. They're going to ride him every single game for the most part. He'll get the one, afternoon game off maybe a week, which he's barely even gotten that. So the interesting thing with O'Hoppe is a point that you kind of bring up that I think is only going to get better for him is he struck out more than people, would have expected to start this season. And I think that was more of him just trying to, get acclimated. Also, he's tapped into way more power. He's hitting the ball harder than we've ever really seen him hit the ball. But at the same time, he's always been a bat to ball guy and a high walk guy. So I'm expecting that still to come back. Like, I'm expecting that to still be a big part of his game. So the power, I don't think is going to go anywhere. I think this is something that we've seen him, prove to be a part of his game. He had 11 home runs in 29 games in Double-A last year. And then, I think after the trade, or that was after the trade to Los Angeles. And then with the Phillies, he had 15 in 75 games in Double-A. This is a dude that just really can flat out hit. I think was trying to figure out his identity in the big leagues. Now that he's been able to kind of show that the power can translate, I think we're going to see the on-base percentage trickle back up. We're going to see the batting average trickle back up. And he could be one of the better offensive catchers in the game. He was my dark horse pick for AL Rookie of the Year. And I stand by it. I think he's been off to a great start, and I think he's only going to get better.
A few more names to run through before we get to players that could make their debut soon. We talked about the Braves a little bit, so let's talk about the shortstop situation. Vaughn Grissom just brought back up. What did you see from his short stint in the minors, and what do you expect from him in terms of a fantasy output?
Yeah, so from a fantasy perspective, I think this is a guy you got to be picking up, right? Because it was never about the bat, and when he was in triple, it was a joke for him. I think he would hit 365. He walked more than he struck out in 10 games. He stole a pair of bags as well. For Vaughn, it was about the glove, and Arcia had improved so much defensively and looked so good as a more veteran player that they went with the more veteran player in the infield. And I get that. But from a fantasy perspective, it was never about the offense for Grissom. So now Grissom gets plugged in because Arcia is hurt. I don't know. I hope he's going to defend. I've come out and said that I think he's a good enough shortstop to hold it down, but obviously Arcia looked like an above average shortstop. That's all to the wayside. Doesn't matter from a fantasy perspective. I think Grissom's going to hit. And even so far this year, in the couple games he's played, he's hit. I think he's going to do that. So as long as Grissom's starting for the Braves, I think you can expect above average production from that spot. And that's a great stopgap. I'm very interested to see what they do after that, though, once Arcia does come back. That said, I would be holding on to Grissom because the Braves, this was my concern going into the year. They've got no production from left field. They've got no production from DH. If Grissom swings it well, even if the glove isn't playing at shortstop, it's going to be really hard to justify sending him back to Gwinnett, given some of the limitations offensively from certain positions here.
Yeah, Zach Nitto or Vaughn Grissom, which one would you be picking up if you had to pick one? I would shy away from Grissom right now just because we've already seen the Braves favor Arcia to begin the year, and he will come back. I think people think that he's just like some kind of throwaway player. He's not. Like, he has started full seasons in Milwaukee. Like, he's a good player. He was off to a fantastic start.
Yeah.
I just don't want timeshares on my roster is
No,
what I
that's
don't
fair.
want.
That's fair. And he'd probably be, I do think there's a world where like he's kind of their super utility type. So like it's worth, if you have the room, hold him. But I think from a perspective of playing time, Neto is going to get the run. They're not bringing Neto up. Like there's a different circumstance here, right? Von Grissom was sent down in favor of Arcia, who then got hurt, and now they have to bring him up. Zach Neto raked in spring training, just caught the attention of the Angels, couldn't have gotten off to a better start in Double-A, and it was to the point where the Angels said, this guy's an upgrade over our big league guys. Once you feel that way, there's no going back unless Neto is a disaster for a month. So from that perspective, Neto's going to get everyday run, and I think he's going to have a pretty easy job as back end of the order hitter that you're going to pitch to, because you're not putting that above average runner on base to flip the order back around to Trout, Ohtani, and the rest of the, Angels front five. That is pretty darn good.
Couple other infielders to get to quickly. Tovar for the Rockies. I would personally drop him. I love him as a player. I love his upside. 2023 Tovar. I'm out right now. Don't love that Rockies lineup. I want to touch on Gunnar Henderson a little bit. Anthony Volpe, of course. Also in there, Miguel Vargas. A few interesting names. And Julian, who just got called up for the Twins. Any of those guys pop to you?
Yeah, I mean, so from a dynasty perspective, of course, I would love to even target Tovar if you're like a rebuilding team or whatever. But from a 2023 perspective, I think you could probably cut ties if you're looking for someone to drop. I think there's a legitimate chance that Tovar gets sent back to triple. I thought it was kind of weird how aggressive the Rockies were.
I didn't
with
like
Tovar.
that.
So the thing with Tovar is this like super good defender, like really impressive defender, and also ahead of his years mentally. I've talked to a couple of his teammates that said he was one of the most mature 21-year-olds you'll ever see. Just really carries himself like a vet. And I think that was enough for the very old school Rockies to say, well, let's just throw this guy up in the big leagues. Played 5 AAA games and was banged up at the end of last year. So even missed some time in Double-A. I think it was ridiculous to promote him. He's just a guy that's not quite ready yet. So Tovar long-term, he's a top 30 prospect if you look at our top 100 list. We love Tovar. But from a fantasy perspective this year, I think you can probably cut ties and find an upgrade. For example, I'd rather start Neto than start Tovar at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I think that everyone's going to hold on to Gunnar Henderson. I don't even think that we really need to touch on him too much. Like
that
far too talented of a kid to say drop, hold, whatnot. Anthony Volpe is a player that I drafted near the end of my 10-man league and a player I'm going to hold on to. I think he's turning the corner a little bit this week. Today he looked great, and he brings the stolen base. What I want to hear from you, you touched on it a little bit. I believe it was you in the Just Baseball show. Maybe it was Jack or Peter, about how he steals bases. And if you're watching the game today, we are recording on Sunday. Not only is he jumping, doing that jump start thing, he's jumping and then jumping back, running. It's just pestering as hell. Stole 3 bases on Saturday. My question is, what is the stolen base total at the end of the year for Anthony Volpe, if you had to guess?
I think he gets 30 with ease. I think he might get 40.
Yeah, so do I. I think 30's like after All-Star break.
Yeah, I have to still get my clock adjusted, or for lack of a better term, I gotta get like my mental scale adjusted to these new rules.
It's hard. It's so hard.
It's really hard because it's totally different. But going off of like what we saw in the minors, and then you maybe adjust for better catchers, but with the minor league rules, I think 40 is probably the fair number. Maybe he could push towards 50. It's really about how much he gets on base. And the thing is he's hit really poorly to start off. He's still getting on base at a 314 clip. So to me, this is somebody that's only going to get on base at he's hitting 186 with a 314 on base. He's always going to walk. He's going to be aggressive when he's on the base paths. They want him to steal. And that momentum lead is something that is kind of taking over baseball. The Yankees organization teaches it as well as anybody. That's why even Judge is stealing bags really effectively and getting the jumps that he gets. I think he could steal upwards of 50. He did last year. And the more he hits, the more opportunity he's going to get to do so. And I think he's going to hit too, man. I was just at the game. I saw him, hit that homer for his first of his career. He looks more confident. His at bats look better. His takes look more comfortable. I think he's really starting to settle in. This was a big ask for a kid to be the youngest shortstop since Derek Jeter in the Bronx. And I think he's built for it. And the beautiful thing is, even when he's not hitting, like he really isn't right now, he's still giving your fantasy team value. So I think it's only going to be up from here.
I also say this all the time on here, but like fantasy baseball is fun. Like draft players that you enjoy watching.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, okay, maybe if player A and player B are similar, pick the one you like better just to watch, because that's the fun part, is watching it all unfold. And he's fun as hell. I love him. Julian, Edward Julian for the Minnesota Twins. Anything on him right now? He just got called up, played a couple games. By the way, quick note on Volpe, those 4 stolen bases from this weekend off of Christian Vasquez, 0 for 6 throwing out would-be base stealers this year. So picking on Vasquez a little bit is something to monitor for fantasy. Yeah. If your team and you need steals, streaming steals is one of the hardest things to do. It might be easier this year with the rule changes, but Christian Vasquez is not getting it done early. And it seems like teams are legitimately targeting him. They must have picked something up, because having a rookie steal 3 times in one game I was kind of like, wait, what's going on? Then I heard that stat and thought, there's something that they're picking up from him. But speaking
I wonder
of the Twins,
if it's time to home, but Pablo, I'm interested to see like some of the other starters, what their times to home are. I know Duran is really slow to home, but that's just their closer. Like that is an interesting wrinkle, but if it's on Vasquez, like that's definitely something to pick up. In regards to Julian, I love him as a prospect in terms of the bat. You talked about playing time.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that he might be a victim of such. You have Royce Lewis coming back. You have Polanco coming back. And Julian has no true position. He's a below average second baseman. And he doesn't hit lefties that well. So this is a guy that just murders right-handed pitching and murders fastballs. He's super productive. If he's in the lineup and you're streaming, plug him in there, because he walks with the best of them and he can run into a ball any day. He's going to get on base. He's a good chance to, like, if you have to plug and play someone, even his 0 for 3s, he'll give you a walk and a run. Yeah. So like there's going to be something there. But in terms of like the rest of the season, I wouldn't prioritize Julian, because there's too many infield options there that I think they prefer. And I think that's kind of part of the reason why they brought him up. I think they wanted to see what they have to get a little bit more clarity for when Lewis comes back, for when Polanco, comes back. And they're going to have a pretty crowded infield situation. They already do, and it's going to get even more crowded. And it doesn't help when you can't play much defense and you can't hit lefties.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Kyle Farmer eventually coming back, who's going to have a roster spot, and Polanco, who's not far off as well. He's going to have to leapfrog 2 players that will have roster spots.
And they're not playing Lewis in the outfield anymore after that ACL tear. When Lewis comes back, I'm almost positive he's an infielder.
Yeah.
So it seems it's gonna be hard for him to break in.
A name for 2024 for sure. Let's cover 3 outfielders. I'll take one. Ruiz for the Athletics, my guy. It's been hitting the ball a little bit harder. Still, in terms of fantasy, like if you need steals, he seems like the right option. Oakland has not run at all. I think they have 6 stolen bases all year. Just not a team that's prioritized running. Good player, watch list for me right now, unless you're in a deeper league. He is hitting pretty well, but the run production in Oakland is so bad that it's tough to put him on your roster right now. But 2 players I want to talk to you about quickly before we move on is Jordan Walker, the quote-unquote right fielder, whatever you may think of him in the outfield, and James Outman. James Outman, I have both of these players on my roster currently in a 10-man. And Outman, to me, is probably the one that I think has had the better year so far, but also the one that I'm a little bit concerned about, because, the Dodgers have had a few outfielders all playing pretty well, and he's not going to play every single day. And as we talked about with the Sean Murphy situation, it's cool to have good players on your team. It's not as cool when they're on the bench half the time or against tough lefties. And, maybe Jason Hayward steals a game here and there, Trace Thompson, whatnot. So what do you think of James Outman? Will he be able to hit enough lefties to become an everyday option, like a true everyday option?
Man, I think if he played, for another team, yes. If he played for the Marlins or Oakland or, some of these other teams that are thinner in the outfield,
Yeah.
maybe. But Outman's somebody that I think he's a really solid big leaguer. I think he's going to be a good contributor, but he's probably going to be a platoon guy on a really good team. And especially when you've got what, Jason Hayward's been doing. You mentioned Thompson is a very solid platoon guy. And then also remember, this is the LA Dodgers, man. If the LA Dodgers feel like they've got a shot, and they're looking pretty good, they could just go trade for a better outfielder. And Outman will still play. He'll play a role. But, I think their goal would be to have a better outfield than they presently have, and to not have the majority of their contributions coming, besides for Mookie Betts, coming from, Outman and Hayward and Thompson and Peralta. So I would be a little bit more wary of Outman over the course of the entire season for that reason. When you look at a Jordan Walker, that's a franchise face of the franchise piece there. Obviously, the Cardinals have technically better players right now, quote unquote, with, future Hall of Famer Nolan Arenado, potential Hall of Famer Paul Goldschmidt, and everything that they've got over there. But you don't bring up a Jordan Walker to, platoon him. That's been clear. He's not platooned. And also with the way he's hit the ball, this is somebody that's going to play every single day for them. And, whether the season's going well or going poorly or whatever it is, he will be playing every single day for them. So that's where I think it's about the run. And I think Walker's just going to get more run.
We've talked about a lot of bats, and, we did not talk about Grayson Rodriguez. So tell us, so here's the reason why I'm struggling with Grayson Rodriguez, because the Orioles did not want him on the major league roster, and they kind of, could wipe the sweat off their brow when he wasn't phenomenal in his first start, had to bring him up due to injuries and pitching and whatnot. They sent Cole Irvin down, which is
I didn't even know he had options.
Which is honestly hilarious that they traded for him. And like, here's another guy who has such a limited ceiling, like no ceiling really, that you just bring into a rotation with no ceiling. And Grayson Rodriguez, by far, is the highest ceiling of that group, has looked pretty good. Is he here to stick for the rest of the year?
I think he is. I would like to see him look a little bit better. It's funny, as we're recording this, he's gone 2 2/3, 4 earned runs against the White Sox, which is, a tough lineup. Grayson Rodriguez, to me, just it hasn't looked like he is all the way back from that lat injury. Not in the respect of the stuff. The stuff's there, but it just seems like he's still trying to feel everything out. I don't know if he totally trusts his whole arsenal, because when I saw Grayson Rodriguez at his best 2 years ago, it was 4+ pitches. It was one of the best changeups I've seen in the minor leagues, and a fastball that jumps. The fastball velocity is all the way back, but the feel for the secondaries isn't totally there. I don't know if it was a little bit of him trying to, break through to the majors, and now he's in the majors, just trying to hang there and stay. I think it's very clear now that they option Irvin that Grayson is there to stay, that all of the development and learning that he's going to do is going to be there, and he's a better option than whatever they have in the minor leagues. That said, there might be some growing pains here. I think he's going to piece together some really good starts. I think he's going to have some rookie-looking starts as well. And then I think in the back half of the year, we're going to see him settle in. He's just too talented. But if you do have him, I'd kind of buckle up. It might take a handful of starts for him to really see what translates at the big league level, learn how to sequence, and kind of learn how to hit his spots and see what gets big league hitters out, because he was able to just kind of overpower guys in the minor leagues.
I'm looking at the top 100 that you have on justbaseball.com, and I'm going through here top 20 list right now, just seeing like who could potentially get called up. Ellie De La Cruz had one. I think he's a later season call up. He's injured right now, so no need to talk about him. Several of these guys we've covered. Several of these guys are 2024, 2025 type arrivals. The first name I land on, who I think we should keep an eye on, is Tyler Soderstrom from the Athletics. And you know how big of a fan I am.
Yeah.
I think he could be up sooner than later. I really do. I don't think he's a catcher long term. And I don't think the Athletics think he's that, especially when they tipped their hand by drafting a catcher in the first round and trading for Shea Langoliers as well. Like, they don't see him as a long-term catcher. First, outfield, whatever the hell he plays, who cares? Get that bat in the lineup. I think that he has a path to get into the lineup soon and stick. And in fantasy, he's going to be playing every single day once he gets up. What do you see from him? Tyler Soderstrom, a player that I just think oozes with potential.
Yeah, I'm interested to see like what they want to do with him as a position, because he's still catching half of the games and then playing first the other half, and Kyle McCann then catches in AAA those other games. And you mentioned like that they drafted Susak, who's supposed to climb pretty quickly, and then they've also traded for Langoliers, who's one of the better catching prospects in the game. It's all about the bat with him, and I think if they want to develop him as a catcher more, then maybe we don't see him as quickly because he's 21 years old. But the bat is just about ready. There's been a little bit more swing and miss in the early going than I think we would have expected in terms of strikeouts, but I don't really see that as a big issue for him. And in terms of the power, it's elite. I think the field to hit is above average. The approach is the one thing that needs to get a little bit better. He's aggressive. He's a little aggressive, and that's what's holding him back from walking. But the second Soderstrom gets called up, and I think it could happen. It will happen this year, and it could happen, before midseason. If that happens, you got to pick him up because his offensive ceiling is, in a full season, 30 plus homers, hitting for some average. And it's really just the only thing is approach. And I think that's only going to get better.
Francisco Alvarez on this list as well. DH first or catcher. I think most people have either picked him up already, the people that wanted to, or have been waiting and seeing, and the waiting and seeing has been nothing but not great production yet, sporadic play, and you've got to be careful with a player like this on a team like the Mets, where every single win matters. They're not just going to throw him in a catcher every day and see what happens, right?
This is similar to, obviously he's way more talented and has better makeup, but it's similar to the Luis Campusano situation where you look at the Padres and yes, does Campusano have a chance to be a better player than Austin Nola? Sure. But if you're playing Campusano every single day, does your team benefit more than starting Austin Nola every single day? Maybe in the offensive stat sheet, yes. But in terms of pitchers working with him, in terms of his receiving, his pitch calling, all those things, no. The answer is no. And that's why we've seen them do what they're doing. For Campusano, there was makeup concerns and things like that kind of go into this. But the point being, they took a really talented catching prospect, and the win now mode has kind of caused him to be stuck in the backup role. And, I think with Alvarez, the Mets didn't want to do this. He's a guy that still has some learning to do defensively, and also offensively definitely has some things that he needs to work on. The high fastball just dismantles him. He really struggled with the high spin fastballs at the top of the zone. Chases them way too frequently. Look, Alvarez is a top 20 prospect for good reason. He's got the potential to be one of the best offensive catchers in the game and could be a good defender. But right now, he is up there because they had no better option. And this is a team that wants to win now. So I don't think they're looking at Alvarez's development 2-3 years from now. They're saying, hey, this guy's the best backup option we can have right now. He's going to run into some baseballs, hit some home runs, and hopefully he'll learn by just being here. And I think it will be good for a guy like him to kind of soak it all in. That said, at the end of the day, he needs reps. And I think that once they can, they're going to send him back down and let him get the reps that way.
So one of the cool things about the top 100 is it has all these ways to sort it. You can sort by rank, player, team, age, level, position, ETA, yada, yada, yada. So I have it searched by ETA. I'm looking at 2023s. We're going through, we've talked about some of these guys. Somebody like Perez for the Marlins, 20 years old. Like I don't see him as a fantasy option. Honestly, like right now, especially with pitchers, I'm always hesitant about pitchers who are really young, who just started. Now, there is a pitcher in Arizona that might be getting called up soon. I'm trying to find where he is on this list. 24th overall. Brandon Pfaadt. Is that how you say it? Pfaadt?
Yeah,
is
that
right?
Brandon Pfaadt.
Okay. I've heard a few different ways, but 24 years old, the player that I know you've been high on, I like him as well, and you told me about him a while ago. Do you see him entering this rotation? I mean, Zach Davies is injured. Madison Bumgarner's not good. Like, simple as that, not a good baseball player.
Yeah.
How soon will he be called up? Now, the Diamondbacks have kind of had some good performances from some other younger pitchers as well, but is that going to stop him from getting called up?
I don't think so. I think we could see Brandon Pfaadt up relatively soon. And this is where fantasy owners, this is where you can eat, is picking up pitchers in the PCL the Pacific Coast League, which is AAA, all the West teams, their ERAs are absolute BS. You're going to see an inflated BS ERA because imagine that every single stadium they pitch in is adjacent to Coors Field. It's pretty close. Albuquerque, El Paso. There's so many. I could list them all. Maybe even Las Vegas, Reno. These are all launch pads out there. So a lot of these numbers are not reflective of the kind of pitchers they are. And a lot of these guys will get promoted and their ERA goes down. It's counterintuitive. So Brendan Pfaadt, you might see his ERA when he gets called up and you're like, wait, why does he have a 4 or 5? And, he ends up shoving. The crazy thing about Pfaadt is he had a 2.63 last year in 61 2/3 innings in the launch pad that is the Pacific Coast League. This year, a lot of the guys that he has faced already have already seen him 3, 4, 5 times now. So there's been a little bit of that annoyance for him in the early going, but I really liked what we saw from him in his last start. He's seeming to settle in already. His strikeout to walk rate is one of the best you're going to find in the minor leagues. That translates. The second he gets called up, which I think is going to happen probably in the next few weeks, at the very latest, I think in the next month or two, I think he's one of the best rookie pitching options. And the other thing about Pfaadt is I think we could see him get called up relatively soon because this is a D-backs team that's currently, I know it's early in the season, but they're in first place. And if they lose a few in a row, if they feel like they could be hitting a little bit of a lull, that's when you bring him up because you're trying to make baseball relevant in Arizona. You got a really fun group. And I think they're focused on winning soon. And Pfaadt's 24 and a half years old. What are you waiting for?
I don't want to take up your whole evening, so I'm going to list a couple guys I like that you should just put on a watch list right now. Matt McLain, I think once he gets called up, he gets a lot of at-bats.
He'll steal bags, too. He was 27 30 last year. I don't know what he's off to this year, but 27 30 last year.
Zach Veen, a guy that I love, Jack loves, Arm's starting to fall in love with even more than before maybe, but that's the type of player that when he gets called up, I don't think that there's going to be a playing time issue, which is what I'm looking for a lot of times in fantasy. Jerkson Profar, goodbye. Zach Veen in. Hell, you could take a couple of those Rockies outfielders and send them away. But I wanted to give you the floor here to talk about anybody else. I know Taj Bradley was recently called up, sent down. I still think he's coming back up very soon. A few other names on this list that just pop out to me. Matthew Liberatore, who I know that you want to talk about as well. Matt Mervis, and I got to throw another Oakland Athletics name in there who a lot of people don't know, Mason Miller, who had one start in AA, was awesome. One start in AAA, awesome. 24 years old. Could see it by the end of the year. Watch list him. Matt Mervis, Matthew Liberatore, and who else did I say? Taj Bradley.
So, yeah, I think Taj will see again for sure. I think this is just the Rays being the Rays, and he's extremely talented. He might be used a little bit more in that Hunter Brown role last year, which is spot start, swingman, whatever. But that's just a good guy to have on your roster. He'll get I think plenty of run, and he's extremely talented, and will get a lot of swing and miss, and has pretty good command overall. Matthew Liberatore, I think, is someone that should be on every single fantasy owner's radar, not only because of how good he's looked, fastball up to 98, which has just never been the case for him. The shape is better. The breaking ball is ticked up. He just looks better. The command, everything is better. He's 23. He's a prospect fatigue, I think, victim in a way. But this is somebody that instantly, I think, would plug in and upgrade the Cardinals rotation. I think they're waiting for the right time to do it. And I think the right time to do it is very soon. A team that's struggling. Pitching hasn't been great. Gordon Graceffo, who was viewed as quote unquote ahead of him, maybe in the prospect ranks, not for us. I think Graceffo just had a rough outing today. I think Libby's going to be the first guy up that they give a shot to. I think he could be the next guy called up. And he should be called up tomorrow, if I'm being honest. And I think that we could see it as soon as the next time through the rotation, as late as, a month from now. But I think it would be ridiculous to wait any longer to call up Liberatore. I've seen enough.
Also want to mention on the Cardinals, Nolan Gorman's been playing well. I didn't mention because I feel like he's been added by a lot of leagues recently, and he's probably gone. If not, grab him. I mean, he's been looking good. Anybody else from this top 100 that you want to mention that is specifically not just watch lists we'll see in June, July, but May? April, May type players.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say Libby is probably number one. Matt Mervis, as you mentioned, somebody that I think it's really just once they're sick of Hosmer. Hosmer's doing that thing where he's good for like a month, so I think it'll be a little longer. But I think the second that time comes around, Mervis will be one of the best fantasy options because that guy just rakes. Brian Roquillo is a name to watch because with the Cleveland Guardians, Roquillo is just a high floor guy, bat to ball. He'll steal some bags. He'll run into some homers. And we've seen Rosario kind of struggle. There's an injury here or there. I think Roquillo could be somebody that we see up any of those Oriole guys, but it's kind of tough right now with Mateo kind of holding them off with how good he has been.
He's been awesome.
And then he's been unbelievable. And then Tanner Bybee of the Guardians. Look, I don't know what the Guardians' plan is and their rotation was deep to start the year. We've seen McKenzie go down. You never know how it's going to happen with some of these guys. They could end up trading Plesac and bringing Bybee up. Who knows? Tanner Bybee is a special talent. He's a guy that I think you're going to see flying up the ranks in a lot of different areas. He was up to 99.4 miles an hour in his last start, and this was a command over stuff guy. Bybee might soon have shown them enough in AAA already that the Guardians will say, you know what? This guy gives us our best chance to win. Another team that's in win now mode that might say, hey, every fifth day, Bybee's better than what we've got right now. I could see him getting promoted in the next few weeks. That wouldn't be surprising to me either if he comes out and dominates the way he has the last few outings in AAA.
A starting rotation that's dealt with some injuries as well. Well, before we get you out of here, you just brought something in my head. Like, wouldn't it be kind of a Guardians move to trade Rosario, even if he was still kind of struggling? Like, he's a free agent at the end of the year, I believe. Like, man, if he's struggling, like, even if they just flip him for some random guy in the bullpen to strengthen an already incredible bullpen, like, that is a Guardians move I could definitely see. Or trade him for some guy no one's ever heard of, and in 6 years he's awesome. Like, but yeah, we don't want to go down the trade talk road. It's April 16th, and I'm already seeing people on Twitter discussing who needs to be traded, which is I know how you feel about mock trades and everything. So, Aram, thank you so much for your time. Before we get you out of here, I'm gonna let you finish whatever thoughts on the top of your head here.
Casey Schmidt, one more that could be up soon.
Yes. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm like, for those that are watching on video, I was like waving my hand, like, wait, I got one more. Casey Schmidt is an elite defender, which I know does not help from a fantasy perspective, but it will help him get to the big leagues. And I think will also help him stay in the big leagues if he starts a little slow. The other thing is he should have multi-positional eligibility and also could plug in multiple spots. The Giants have been, so this is an elite, the best defensive third baseman in the minors, Casey Schmidt. But he played shortstop when Marco Luciano got hurt last year in high A and was phenomenal there. Now he's in AAA. Offense is good too. He's tapping into more power. Bat to ball skills keep getting better. He looks like an above average hitter. But he's been splitting his time between third and short. And that tells me, like, if Crawford gets hurt, which is very likely, if they're not getting any production from the left side of the infield, Schmidt could be a guy that's going back and forth. So you might have multi-positional versatility there for your lineup. And also it's a way of him staying in the lineup. He is one of the best defenders I've seen. So you can really have him going back and forth from third and short, but he is a good bat to ball guy, sneaky power, and he'll even mix in a few bags. Casey Schmidt of the Giants is a name to watch. I think we're the only people out there that have him on the top 100 list.
I think so too. I love that. Aram, you're wearing your Miami Heat basketball shirt. Very cool shirt, not a very cool team. What is your prediction for the Miami Heat in the playoffs?
I think they get swept round one. I mean, we're recording this. I'm missing the beginning of the game. I couldn't care less, which is saying a lot because I usually care a lot about the Heat. So I think they get swept. I think they might steal one. That's about it. I'm pretty depressed on that team, but that's why I'd rather talk fantasy baseball with you and having me on. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at RMLateNate and check out the top 100 list if you want to do your own like little research. There's probably tons of names on there that could end up breaking in soon that we didn't even get to.
Arm will be updating that. Do you do mid-season or end of season? I can't remember.
We'll do a mid-season, but I think what we're going to do this year that's a little different is when guys graduate, I'm going to just graduate them. So,
man.
We'll be able to do the cool thing of like with Miguel Vargas graduating, Isaac Pacheco enters or something like that.
You should not have told me that because I'm going to be texting you all the time about, hey, man, is this guy going to get in? So-and-so has 30 more games. I'm going to be having a countdown. But hey, man, thanks so much for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Just Fantasy Show this week. And make sure to like and subscribe and tell a friend as well. And we are out.